Good morning. It is December 13th at about 7:30 in the morning, and we are awake and raring to go. The children all came in and gave me lots of cuddles this morning. They were trying to get out of getting up, but Mom was awake, so that didn't work out very well. But we did discuss which cookie is each person's favorite, and I tried to convince them that peppermint bark is not a cookie, but it is the favorite. My favorite is mincemeat cookies, made with my great-great-grandmother's sugar cookie recipe on the outside, instead of like mince pies. And so you get a cookie that's like this big, with just a little spoonful of the mincemeat, and I use the kind that does not contain any meat. Here is the beginnings of the color work on the mittens. This is just going to be a border row. I'm going to have some plain of the green color for a while. Hi, kitty. And then I'll start in on the main design. So that's where that is at. Now that Bunny's off at school, I can show you the shawl. Actually, school hasn't started yet. She's still waiting. So I was mid-row here. So I have added this color, which is really looking very pink next to the others. I'm very pleased. But by itself, it is quite a bit more red. So I finished this stockinette in neutral section, and I've started in on the seed stitch. And I am basically, once again, playing yarn chicken, because however much yarn I have is however much yarn I'm going to use. Yesterday's yarn chicken for the pink was this much. Ox. I have just these two little balls. Now, I follow Norman Kennedy's advice with balling yarn, which means that inside of each of my little balls is a piece of tissue paper. So these little balls are, in fact, much smaller than it might ordinarily seem. The reason for doing this is to even out the tension in your ball. I'm just going to fix that later. If you are winding really tight in the beginning, which you almost inevitably do, you're putting a different amount of tension on the yarn at the beginning than when you're out at the outside of the ball. So if you adjust that and provide a core for the yarn, now he's happy, provide a core for the yarn to wind around, you'll get less distortion to the tension and the twist in your yarn. So I watched a lecture he gave on that, and that was just a one-off comment he was talking about, but it makes a lot of sense from a spinner's standpoint. It's also why you shouldn't wind or cake your skeins before you are ready to cast on the project. It is a lot of work to do it yourself if you don't have a ball winder, and it's a big project. I understand that, and lots of yarn shops are perfectly willing to wind it off for you when you purchase your yarn. But if you're not going to start the project, you really should leave it in the skein or the hank form. It is significantly better for the yarn. It keeps your twist consistent the way it was originally spun, and that will definitely aid in your project. It doesn't alter the consistency and elasticity of the yarn because it is not under tension in that skein and hank, and that's why they're sold that way. So that is something for you to consider, just a little bit of knowledge this morning. So I have cat fur everywhere now. Thank you, Racer. Did you have a stressful night or something? Normally he ignores us in the morning after we give him his food. He'll meow at whoever wakes up first and want the food, and he really wants somebody to stand in the kitchen with him. But the kids had breakfast in the kitchen, and lunches were made in the kitchen, so lots of people were in the kitchen this morning, and he should not have missed out on that. So maybe he just kind of had a stressful night and needs some extra cuddles. I don't know. He's a good kitty. He's an old kitty. So that is my plan. I'm going to get some Christmas cards done. I'm going to work hard on all this knitting, finish up the design before I go much further on the mittens, so that I know what I'm doing before I knit. It's a theory anyway. and watch some Vlogmases and maybe some TV documentaries. So that is the plan. I also did restart the bread dough, so a little later today I'm going to finish straightening up the kitchen and take some shots of me working on the bread because I really want to eat it. So there is that. And maybe, although I may wait for the kids to get home to help with the baking, because the girls really, really love to bake. And they call themselves my kitchen assistants, and they are very, very good at it, actually. With utterly minimal supervision, they could probably do the whole thing on their own. There's just some things in each recipe, I think, that they haven't been the one doing previous to this, so they still need me around. But they are both very, very good at following a recipe or reading directions and making a food item. So my girls are definitely not going to starve. My mouse, while perfectly capable of doing that too, and often makes his own eggs and will even make me breakfast now, is much more interested in just having the finished product. He also doesn't like cakes, so he is much less interested in baking. Although berries and cream or custard, that sort of dessert, he really likes. Ice cream, that kind of thing. So I'm going to get going and get on the knitting, and I'll talk to you later. Sitting in the car waiting for my husband to come out from running some errands, and while the view isn't great, I thought I'd just show off the snow. Just a little bit of Christmas wrapping done today. Got those over there, and I am wrapping up the socks right now. Hello, and welcome back to my living room. It is 10 o'clock at night. The bread is out. Insert pretty picture of bread. Right here. It is still warm. I'm going to exert willpower and not cut into it until the morning when it is cool and ready for eating. I have to put these back on. So our progress. We have more work on the shawl. Seed stitches turning out really pretty. And despite the fact that this is red, and if I hold up the ball, it is definitely red against, get away from the end of the needle, against the other colors here, it just looks like a darker pink. So I'm really happy about that. But Bunny is really, really, really gonna love it. We've got like this much left, and then it's on hold until I can free up the natural color. With regard to the mittens, I didn't make a ton of progress today. I have just the beginnings of the color work. So there's just a dotted border all the way around the bottom, and then this is the very bottom edge of the curve of the dragon's tail, and then the back is just going to be flecked. And I think it's going to be flecked fairly randomly. So there's that. I think these are going to be nice and warm. When I was thinking about it before, I hadn't taken into consideration all of the floats, so that should be good. This is a little tight on my hand, so it's starting to really hurt across in here, and I don't quite know why, so that's going really slowly, but I'm pleased with the results. We ended up taking an unexpected errand trip, so there's a little bit of footage from inside my car from that today, and it was briefly very nice to get out of the car, but then the snow started coming down heavier and heavier, and we still had a fair amount of driving to do, and so it didn't stick. It was just, the visibility was just really bad. It was really foggy, and the snow coming down, and it started out as that pretty giant picture postcard kind of snow coming down, and I was like, oh, this is pretty, and my husband said it wouldn't be pretty if you're the one driving, and I said, well, you're probably right. And very soon it stopped being a pretty snow and started just being kind of an angry, you should be at home kind of snow, and so we went home. the kids had swimming lessons tonight, and my husband took them off to that right, I want to say about an hour before then. Badger put one of her stuffies on my chest and said, "Watch mommy." And so the elephant, whose name is Gumball, watched me. And I don't know what kind of magic stuffed animals have, but he was clearly told to make mommy take a nap, because I cuddled into that little elephant. He's actually about this big. And slept right until dinner. They brought me some dinner, and I wasn't really hungry. My stomach was kind of upset. And I poked at the dinner. And then I promptly fell back to sleep, cuddling Gumball, and woke up to my husband rewriting the song "Rollin' by the River" to raising on the counter, to indicate that the bread dough now needed some attention immediately, and he wasn't dealing with it. He's a really good cook, but he does not bake. Under duress, he will keep an eye on something I've started, but he does not like to do it. So there is that. It seems like many things got sorted out, and I don't have a lot of evidence. So there is that. The bread recipe, and you add, it calls for half a cup of candied mixed fruit or citron, and 2 3/4 cup of raisins. I throw in as much fruit as I have and or feel like. It also calls for some pine nuts. I never add that. And then 1 tablespoon of crushed anise seed. And basically what I do is I mix the anise seed with the fruit to kind of control some of that stickiness. So you use, you build a bread out of the other ingredients. And it'll be a very sticky, very kind of slack dough. And my food processor cannot handle this dough. So I end up starting it there and then dumping it into a bowl and becoming a giant sticky mess, and then hand kneading it. But it is a very soft hand knead. It's a very easy to work with dough. And then you let it rise a bit, and then lay it out on a board and put all the fruit, half of the fruit down, and knead that in, and then smooth it out into kind of a disc again, and put the rest of the fruit on and knead it in again, and then leave that to raise. And then cut it in half, and you can shape like a round loaf, or they make fancy pans for this. I don't own a fancy pan. And his other suggestion is to use a metal coffee can. And if anyone knows where someone can get a metal coffee can now, let me know. But I used 2 loaf pans this time, just because I wanted to get a little bit more height on it. Traditionally, they have a fair amount of height. So I wanted to try that out. Also, I figured it would be easier for me to carry the loaf pans as opposed to balancing a big cookie tray to hold a freeform loaf. I would have shot video of this, but I can't do that and make the stuff. I can't do that one-handed, and my tripod is downstairs, so it is unreachable. And no angle I tried just setting the camera at was good.